So as we dive into what house this is falling in for each of you according to your rising sign and what the themes of those houses are, it may be a good idea, if you're not familiar with the houses, to jot down the themes as I go over them. If you are joining late, feel free to holler at me in the comments what your rising sign is, if you need me to review anything for folks who might be joining late. And then I did want to also call out, you can do this practice for your sun sign, not just your rising sign. Typically we do it with our rising sign so that we're in alignment with our natal chart, but you can also do it with your sun sign. So just be aware of that. If you have Aries rising, though, this is going to be an 11th house full moon for you. Aquarius, of course, the natural ruler of the 11th house of friends, organizations, hopes, and dreams. It's one of my favorite houses to work with. But for those of you who have Aries rising, you may find that a long-held hope or dream that you have had in the works for some time is finally coming to fruition, finally coming to a close, and you're putting the finishing touches on it. And if that's the case, congratulations to you. That's always, I think, one of my favorite things to do. But the 11th house also has to do with your social life. It has to do with friendships and social activities. So you may find that you're out and about more with this full moon. You might have a social invitation come up. And then, of course, the 11th house also rules organizations. So things like clubs or associations, groups that you belong to. If you have Taurus rising, this is going to be a 10th house full moon. So that'll be career, that'll be achievement, awards, and recognition, our 10th house. Your professional life, status, and reputation. So this could be a good time to be finishing up a professional project if you've got something in the works, if you have Taurus rising. And for Gemini rising, 9th house is activated. So the 9th house is international affairs. It's long distance travel, long distance communication. I would say definitely anything beyond the reach of, say, 500 miles or so of where you live would fall into the range of long distance. Publishing and broadcasting where you're broadcasting to people across the world, or large audiences, live streaming, podcasting, things like that would fall into. A lot of social media activity can potentially fall into the 9th house depending on what it is or how you use it. Things like YouTube, I would say, definitely 9th house, right? Blogging, definitely 9th house. But also immigration, dealings with foreigners or foreign countries or foreign cultures. 9th house also has to do with legal matters and higher education, even religion and philosophy. But if you have Gemini rising, you're likely putting the finishing touches on something related to one of those themes, okay? For Cancer rising, this is going to be 8th house full moon. So other people's money. So full moons, financial full moons can play out a couple of different ways. Sometimes it means that an income source is coming to an end. However, if you follow my new moon broadcast, so I encourage you to make an initiation with each new moon, ideally you are following my advice at the new moon in your financial houses and coming up with ways to add to your income and boost your income. And if you're doing that, the full moon then can signify when those efforts are finally coming to fruition. You're finally seeing the payoff, the results of those labors potentially. And that's why I always encourage you, when you have a new moon in the 2nd house, in the 8th house, even in the 11th house, you can use that financially because the 11th house is earnings from business. But you can leverage these new moons to boost your income. And if you do, then you get those nice benefits at the full moon like we have right now in the 8th house for those of you who have Cancer rising. Now, the 8th house has to do with other people's money. It has to come to resources that come to you through your partner, investment earnings, insurance, and taxes. Now, in the case of insurance and taxes, that can be insurance premiums and taxes that you pay. It can also mean insurance claims that are paid to you and tax refunds that are due you. The 8th house also has to do with estates and wills and inheritance. It has to do with bonus or commission income. And then if we're looking at some non-financial topics, death, rebirth, transformation, the occult, psychology, investigation, and research, these are also 8th house themes. So anywhere where you're digging deep, that's the 8th house. Wealth and influence, basically. Leo, this is a 7th house full moon for you. 7th house, of course, has to do with partnership and marriage. So business partnerships, long-term committed relationships akin to marriage where you're living with your partner. Relationships with other people in general are also described by the 7th house. And if you're talking about the descendant specifically, it points to what we tend to reject about ourselves and what we tend to project onto other people. Okay. For Virgo rising, this will be a 6th house full moon for you. So work, health, pets, daily routines, your employees if you have them. And that can be like if you have a house cleaner that comes over, or if you have someone who comes and does the yard work, maintenance, or landscaping, or what have you at your house, or a babysitter. These would be considered employees, even if you're not specifically a business owner. If you employ those types of folks, they count as employees. Pets, your schedules, your habits. 6th house also relates to diet, and that health, especially through diet, and the impacts of diet on health is a lot of how you see health described in your 6th house. For Libra, this is a 5th house full moon, so that's creativity, it's children, it's love and romance, right? Not marriage, that's Venus. This is love and romance. This is Leo, right? And Leo is the 5th house. It's the sun rules the heart. So this is things we take pleasure in, things we enjoy, people we enjoy, right? Sports and risk-taking and gambling, affairs of the heart. For Scorpio, this is going to be a 4th house full moon for you. So 4th house, of course, has to do with home and family. It has to do with real estate. It has to do with your parents. And it can be one parent or it can be both parents. It just kind of depends on how you're experiencing your 4th house. And then the 4th house also has to do with later life. Okay. For Sagittarius, this is a 3rd house full moon. So that's travel and communication, but travel and communication that happen near to you. I would say within 500 miles of where you currently find yourself or where you live. So local travel, short distance travel, childhood education comes under 3rd house, mental activity and how we communicate, how we analyze, how we think, how we conceptualize. These sorts of things are also 3rd house. And then 3rd house has to do with siblings, has to do with your extended family, like aunts and uncles and cousins, has to do with your neighbors. So basically your immediate environment and the people that you find in your immediate environment, they're also ruled by the 3rd house. For Capricorn, this is a 2nd house full moon for you. So that has to do with earned income and expenses. That's money that you earn from the work that you do in the 6th house, right? Wealth and possessions, but wealth and possessions that are movable assets. So real estate doesn't count. You can't move your house. Investments and inheritances don't count because they're largely difficult to move. 2nd house has to do with cash on hand, my friend, and your possessions and expenses that you have in your regular daily life. Okay. For Aquarius, yay, this is the 1st house full moon for you. So 1st house being appearance, it's self-expression, it's your identity and your personality, it's the way you behave, your mannerisms, your physical body. 1st house is also the role that you play in the world. And so sometimes when we see a full moon in the 1st house, a role that we identify with might be coming to an end. Okay. So be aware of that, those of you who have Aquarius rising, or that could be true for Aquarius sun signs too. And then finally for Pisces rising, this will be a 12th house full moon. So that has to do with privacy and seclusion. That has to do with spirituality. It has to do with your unconscious mind and your beliefs and your escapist tendencies and your addictions and what you do to relax and unwind. Okay. So for a 12th house full moon, it might be a good idea to take some time relaxing and unwinding and just kind of take a break. Pisces rising, maybe you need that once in a while. Take a break. So that wraps up really for part 2. If anyone joined us late, if you need me to recap for you what your rising sign, what house is falling in for you by rising sign, and what the themes of that house are, just let me know in the comments what your rising sign is. And then we'll wrap up part 2 and we'll move on to part 3 here.